epic, a kind of political poem uh, that I wrote one day when I was listening to the radio. You know how you're always listening to the news, but how much truth gets through the news. So that's what this one is about. The voice from the radio this evening in the suburbs of Buenos Aires. When you were a child, they sounded in their great wisdom, those all-knowing tones with the objectified voices, speaking in the code-like dots and dashes of emphasis and intonations, that you did not know, nor had any idea of the meta-messages. You stood in awe of these casters broad. Ah, to be one of them, to be selected, to give the news, to sum up in your voice and gravity the events of the day, blocking history into its summarizable scenes. You saw them in your mind's eye, sitting at their small tables, speaking into the microphone which came down from the ceiling, as though God or the sky powers had dropped an audio to facilitate their serious and mellifluous voices, staring trance-like into the red on-the-air lights from their glassed-in cubicles, or then on television looking straight into our eyes, then glancing down to ground themselves in the script. Nothing could be serious beyond these voices. Nothing could exist beyond the focus of their selection of the newsworthy. Their tables broadened, adding wings, becoming great, broad tables of intellectual consideration, capable of holding whatever material necessary for their cogent lucubrations they essayed each day, or for confabbing with other specialists or sidekicks. You saw your classmates pretending to give the news, competing in junior contests, strictured in their first suits, hair plastered down, reading in their adolescent voices as though they now, ascending the mysterious stairway, trying like some flycaster to end the particular broadcast in the shortest number of seconds before the official 6.5 minutes of news was up. Oh, history that has been pumped into us all our lives like embalming type fluid into one of the voodoo undead, of bits of news that are fat soluble and like yellowed newsprint lodged somewhere in the forgotten warehouses of the soul. O narcotic saddener and objectifier unto death, that does not need to be administered orally or by injection, but is taken voluntarily by the subject so that history may speak in his ear, or so he hears. O vision of death himself reading the news. O bought men and women who learned that intelligence is filtered through finer and finer meshes, strictured in closer and closer confines, until only the tiniest understated sympathy for the junta's version is necessary, like some highly paid hoop star shaving points more and more subtly and the smallest micron of approbation for the freedom fighter guerrillas, until the selection of questions for the interviewed earmarks the answers to be believed are discarded. Now you almost feel a pity for them, like a chained dog told when to bark, the bought voice never able to speak some personal conviction, the emotions that must be hedged and hedged again. They must know sometimes that the innocent are dying in their grammatical pauses. In their elisions, whole subraces are going under. In their versions, justice is gagged and muffled, and yet they speak on in those carefully modulated tones which seem almost human, almost friendly, almost intelligent, as though they were singing to themselves the song of the news, the serious and carefully monitored news, as though News Brother were watching out for you, and when certain sub-factions of alleged splinter groups are said to be liquidated. News brother will read your personal obituary, perhaps. And the women now newly admitted, News sister, with their sophisticated and cold voices, they too of the frozen intelligence, of the numbed sensibility, perhaps in their beds at night they cannot sleep. In the evening, when the dark comes and we are returned to our isolated moorings, the magical and hearth-like dial of the radio warms us, and we listen deep into the night and for the news, listening between the lines to catch a few of the silent Morse-like SOSs of sinking human ships they inadvertently let through, events which are almost interpreted except for the omission of a few subtle details which make all the difference, and into which we fill in the vague shapes with educated guesses or intuitions, like the blind desperately struggling to conceive a true picture of the world, and also perversely taking pleasure in some of the summings up which gloss over and the numbing sense of 6 o'clock and all's well, as though imbibing a drug which simultaneously awakens us and puts us to sleep, sorting, cracking, cocking a skeptical ear of hearsay into hearsay, but still too gullible, too ready to believe in spite of ourselves. And in the end, when they come on with a bit of human interest, or a joke, or poke some harmless fun, say, "That's all for tonight, folks," as though they would doff their bidded masks of truth muffler, of truth garbler, and extend a hand. Quote, "This evening in the suburbs of Buenos Aires, 6 armed and masked men abducted labor leader Arturo Mendoza, bursting into his home without warning. The identity of the abductors was not known.